very slow. We're live.
Nice.
Hi, everybody, if there's anybody here.
Hello.
I guess while we're waiting for people to join us, we should start by introducing ourselves, and saying who we are, giving our credentials for this Monster Madness situation.
We're professionals at this.
Yeah, we're definitely monster professionals, and I'm not a sports professional, but you're a sports expert when compared directly to me, so...
Sports expert. Michigan Mug, that's all I need, I think.
So I'm Audrey. I've been playing D&D for, 5 years now, I guess? That sounds right. That sounds right. And, we decided to do this weird monster sports bracket. So today we're going to be previewing the bracket and talking about that a little bit. And I'm joined by Tyler, who's going to be...
Tyler, haven't been playing D&D for quite as long, but I've been watching sports for probably ever. And it's so sad. Sports happening right now, so this is the next best thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So...
Imaginary.
Yeah, so this bracket's clearly based off of the basketball tournament that happens every year, except for this one. So we got 64 monsters. Monsters.
Yep, 64 monsters. We took them from 3 D&D monster books that are currently released. The Monster Manual, Volo's Guide to Monsters, and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. It's like a truly random matchup. We got our list by assigning every monster a number and then randomly generating a list of numbers, and then those were the monsters that we used to make our bracket. So this is like a weird meeting of sports and nerddom. And Tyler was in charge of making the seed or the rankings.
Yeah.
The seeding the brackets.
So Audrey was helpful to provide the challenge rating for each monster. So that sort of lined up with where they're going to be seeded. So if you haven't followed the NCAA tournament before, our 4 regions are seeded or ranked. Seeds and ranks are basically the same thing. So they're seeded from 1 to 16, where 1 is the probable best team in that region, and then 16 is the probable worst. So that's kind of how our monsters are set up. The 1 seed in each region is the monster that's typically the most powerful, and the 16 will be the weakest monster. But don't let the seed scare you away from picking a lower seed monster, because anything can happen. Upsets happen all the time, probably with monsters, just like they do with real teams.
Yeah. I mean, so D&D is played using, it's called a D20 system. So that means the primary dice you're using is a D20. This is my teaching dice, big enough for all the kids in the classroom to see. So that means when you roll to see if you hit, you can roll anything from a 1 to a 20. And obviously the lower you get, the worse you do, which means that you can have a string of bad luck and end up with a monster that's otherwise really strong, who just because of the sun being in their eyes or some other weird circumstance not being able to hit, even if the monster they're fighting against is a little tiny goblin.
Yeah. Exactly.
So D20 systems are notoriously swingy. Some people love that, some people hate that. But, real life is kind of weird. So if you're playing your game in the rain, that's a thing that happens in sports, I'm sure. That's going to affect your game differently. And the other thing... Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing that's important to know for this bracket is that after our monsters battle, they're only getting half of their stats back for the next battle. So if you lose 20 points of HP, they're getting 10 points back. And if they have spells and spell slots, they're only getting half of what they use back. So as monsters use things throughout the season, they don't get all their stuff back. So monsters will be progressively weakened by the battles that they go through.
Yeah. And this is only the winning monsters. I don't know if I mentioned, but it's a single elimination bracket. So, each battle, whoever wins will move on, whoever loses won't. So they're out of the tournament.
Yep.
And it will probably be, I don't know, will it be to the death? These are all monsters, so probably they're kind of out for blood in this case, but I don't know. It depends on how the battles work out. Maybe some monsters will run away if they're smart enough to do that. So
yeah, we've got some pretty intelligent monsters in our bracket, and I think that there are some of them that are totally capable of making that judgment call of not my day and piecing out. But there are definitely other ones that are just gonna fight to the end.
Fight to the end.
And so, to give you guys a quick preview of what future episodes are gonna look like before we jump right into who's kind of the big people to keep your eye on in the brackets or the regions. We're gonna take this week by week, but we'll be doing recaps of the 64 group set rather than play real time playing those all out, and then the 32 as well. Starting at the once we have our Sweet 16. Is that a real thing, or is that
no, yeah, you nailed it.
Oh, haha! It's not just a term for rich children and their birthday parties. So once we get to the Sweet 16, we'll be live streaming those battles out, and in our future episodes, we'll be joined by other resident D&D experts, people.
Yeah.
Ellie and Marissa. We all know what we're doing. I said it with confidence, so it's true.
Exactly. All right, should I pull up a picture of the bracket?
Yes. And while you're doing that, if you are at home and you want to play along or fill out your own bracket, if you go to aadl.org /monster-madness, you can see it right at the bottom of our bracket. You can download your own bracket. We have a PDF version and a form fillable version if you don't have access to a printer. So this is our overall bracket. We've got 4 regions because that's how sports do it.
Yeah, so you can see it: Eastern Shore, West Marches, Northern Reach, and Southern Crescent. And then on the outsides are where the monsters' names are listed. If you want to find out any more information about these monsters and don't happen to have the 3 books that Audrey mentioned earlier, just do a Google search of the monster's name, followed by 5E usually works. But you'll find a lot of hits on Google with information for each monster.
Yep, you do want to use. So we're using Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. We'll do what I promise is a very fast rundown of D&D history. D&D has been through lots of iterations. Some of you are probably aware of it from back in the 70s. And it's currently on its 5th edition. And some things have changed from the 70s to now. So you want to throw that 5e in just to make sure you're finding the same stats that we're using.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, should we dive in?
Yeah, let's dive right into our monsters.
All right, so let me zoom in a little bit on the first region we're going to do.
Yep. We're going to start over in the east.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to go down each roster, but for each region, we're going to try to highlight the prohibitive favorite in each region, which is probably the number 1 seed. A matchup that we each think is interesting or that we want to highlight, and then maybe a dark horse candidate in each region. So the first region we're talking about, Eastern Shore, is the Zudmore. You want to talk about that a bit, Audrey?
Yes. So this monster is actually, I really love her. She's super cool. She's got super sweet nicknames, like the Demon Queen of Fungi. She's a badass. She's great. And she's got 2 really cool abilities that will make her a really strong contender. The first is an ability to release these spores called infestation spores. And basically, if her opponent fails 3 checks, they die. So that's a pretty direct path to victory for her. She also has mind control spores, so if she's able to release those and the monster is intelligent enough to forfeit the match, that's another way that she can, again, direct path to victory. So she has a lot of really good battle options that get her to that final winning spot, but also conserve her abilities over time, which is important to me.
Because she's only going to get certain abilities back depending on how many she uses.
Yep.
What's nice for her is, the number 1 seeds, they have a relatively easy path forward, which is kind of a reward for them being really amazing. So she only has to deal with the 16 seed first, and hopefully she'll be able to hold back some of those more powerful attacks until later.
Yep, for sure.
Cool.
Yep. So that's honestly, her actual name is, who knows how you say it.
Zigzagoy. All right, and then one of the matchups that I want to highlight in this region is the 8 seed versus the 9 seed, and we got the werebear versus the otiak.
Great matchup.
Amazing, love them both. It's going to be a good matchup, I think. We got the werebear, who looks pretty much what you'd think a person turning into a bear would look like, complete with the little braided beard here, which I think is a nice touch. And then the otiak, which is kind of a terrifying but very happy looking.
Yeah.
Just a big grin on its fangy face. I think it's going to be a good matchup because while the otiak kind of looks like he would be a little more scary in a fight, the werebear, like werewolves, is immune to any weapon that doesn't have silver on it. So unless the otiak can figure out a way to poison him or something like that, I think it might go the way of the werebear. Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a solid matchup.
I think so too. Yeah.
I really am excited about that smiley face.
What about yours?
Right, so I've got the cloud giant smiling one versus the green dragon wormling. It's not, in terms of battling it out, I don't think this is going to be a huge upset or anything. But it's a fun match because you've got two, this is me being a D&D nerd, you've got two monsters that have some really significant lore fighting each other out. Everyone's aware of, dragons are literally in the title of Dungeons and Dragons. And then, so they're a big deal. And then the giants have, all sorts of cool lore. So this particular giant type wears that mask that she has in her hand to, as part of her order. And she's got some really cool spells at her disposal. The green dragon,
nice.
It could be a surprise because it is a type of dragon that has poison as its main attack, and poison is poison. It can be insidious. So it might not take her out in that particular match, but if she's not able to resolve the effects of the poison between matches, it could last, and it could really drag the giant down. So it's worth keeping an eye out for.
That's some good strategy to have in mind when you're filling out your brackets. Keep track of who, even if someone wins a match, keep track of who they lost to, because it might, come up later in the fights.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, and then a dark horse for this round. I think we have one.
We do, which also...
yes, this guy.
I'm so excited about this guy, actually. This is another one where, who he fights is going to have a direct effect on, how he does. His thing is all about, soul stealing.
So it's called the Mabasu first, right?
Oh, yeah, that's what it's called. And he can regain HP by devouring the souls of the creatures that he defeats.
Just nasty.
Which is gross. But also... that same ability allows him to beef up his future attacks.
That is crazy.
Which is crazy. So the more creatures he defeats, the stronger he gets, and he's already a number 2 seed. So he could be a real contender. He could give some other monsters a real run for their money down the line.
Yeah, right. It might be the Zugjamoy, they might, kind of take care of all the upsets in their way and be at the end, which would be a pretty great battle. But if it doesn't happen, something else better is going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride.
All right, so that's the East region.
Yes.
Let's hop on over
to the West.
To the West Marches. So you can see over on the side all of the monsters. So the number one seed that we're going to talk about here is the Crescent.
Yeah.
Crescent, perhaps?
Sure. I mean,
Here's
it's all those demon names filled with consonants.
Right. This guy's literally a demon, so...
He's a sexy demon. It's important to note up top.
Right. He's just pretty ridiculous. He's got a lot of powers. I mean, he's a pretty clear number one seed. Yeah. He can teleport at will. He's immune to pretty much all non-magical attacks. He's got a ridiculous amount of hit points. He's got, a lot of really solid spells that he can cast, like greater invisibility, just to make him even harder to hit. He's got counter spells who can deal with anyone trying to use magic on him.
Yeah,
I'm really confident. He knows he can, take care of himself. So,
he's confident for a reason. The teleporting is a really important thing to highlight too, since he has basically almost unlimited. He has the ability to teleport in, attack someone, and teleport out, which makes him very difficult to hit.
How are you going to hit him?
Yeah. So he's got a lot of good stuff going for him.
He's going to be tough to beat. He's going to be tough to beat for sure.
Yep. He also has 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Yeah,
so
notice that.
Important details to notice.
Can't see his toe.
The subtle wrongness that pervades his beauty, according to the Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes.
That's the inside strategy that anyone needs to know when they're filling out their bracket tree.
Yeah, you got to know. Go for the like, I don't know, the pretty weird ones, I guess.
Exactly. All right, matchups.
That's from the last bracket.
Right. So a matchup I want to highlight in this one is I'm calling it the creepy spider matchup, the 7 versus 10 seed. And it's pretty clear why it's called that. You've got the Crucic High Lord on one side and the Yogi Master on the other. It's pretty interesting that these two got matched up because they look pretty similar, and they also serve kind of the same role in their, they control a horde of similarly looking but smaller creatures. So usually they're fighting with armies, but in this case they're fighting by themselves, which I think might make a difference. The Crucic High Lords of the higher seed, the favorite, it's got some pretty solid armor that the Yogi Master doesn't have. You can tell the Yogi Master is a little furry, not quite as scaly. And then the Crucic High Lord's got a bunch of different ways he can come at you. He comes at you with the spiky legs, comes at you with some acid spray, and then he can throw spikes at you from distance too. So he's going to be tough to beat. The Yogi Master is going to have to really use its spell casting. It's not as strong up close, but it can cast some spells. It can cast a spell called Enslave, so it can potentially swing the battle by just taking control of the Crucic High Lords.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good one.
Yeah, the Nyogi have a crazy ability with their charm. So if that works, it could be an upset.
It's all about that working kind of in this battle. If it doesn't work, they're kind of going down pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, what about yours?
Mine is going to be the Shambling Mound versus the Unicorn, which I'm calling the Large Plant versus the Pretty Horse matchup. And I partially picked this because the idea of a unicorn charging at a large moving hill really makes me laugh. That's what this whole matchup is going to be.
Maybe next week we'll act out these battles too.
Just strap a horn on, run at some hills. So the things to note about this: the unicorn has roughly half of the HP of the Shambling Mound. But it has healing abilities, so that can keep it in this match and also in future matches can keep it going longer.
Yep.
And then the other thing to note is that the Shambling Mound has a really great attack called Engulf, where it can like suck people into it.
You can tell it's got a person right there.
Yeah, it's got a person right there. But it can't use it on the unicorn because the unicorn is too large in this case.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. But it can still grapple the unicorn and then beat it to death. So, and it has more hit points than the unicorn, so it could just kind of outlast it. But it might not come out of the battle in the greatest shape. So that one's going to be a really close matchup, actually, I think. I'm not totally sure which way it'll go.
It truly has like, it's like differing styles, different styles of play, sort of, or fighting in this case. So it'll be interesting to see. It's very evenly matched, 8 versus 9 seed, and those are usually some of the more entertaining battles. This seems to be one of those.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Dark Horse.
Yeah, what's our Dark Horse for the West?
I think it is this friendly guy.
Oh, this guy, yeah. This weird...
The Devourer.
Devourer, man. He's another Soul Eater, sort of, monster. He's a large fiend. And his whole thing is killing people and then sucking them into his ribcage.
Weird. We have another like soul-stealing monster as our Dark Horse.
Yeah. Well, they usually get some sort of abilities when you eat people's souls, I guess.
We all know that.
As we all know from our necromancy days. So it kind of gives these creatures the ability to extend themselves, perhaps longer than other creatures who are more straightforward in their attacks.
Right. It's possible that they even get stronger as the matches go on, where a lot of other creatures without these powers will get weaker as the matches go on naturally.
Yeah, yeah.
So it could be a really huge advantage for them.
Yep, and also he's fun to talk about because look at him. He's gross.
Right. He's just disgusting.
He's disgusting.
Really, really great looking. All right, shall we move on to the next region?
Yes, the North, which is going to be interesting, I think. So when
Northern Reach, there we go.
Northern Reach. So when Tyler and I were talking about our matchups, our number 1 seed for the North is the adult blue Draco Lich. And we were a little unsure about it because its challenge rating is a little bit lower than some of the other number 1 seeds.
It's a kind of a controversial choice, I would say.
Yeah. Well, the joys of randomly picking your entire bracket.
I don't know. Whatever panel chose these, I think they're maybe need to be looked into. I'm a little suspicious of
science.
I think there's a dragon-centric bent here,
But as I was looking at the Draco Lich some more, he's got some sneaky abilities that I think could make him harder to beat than I thought. The number 1 thing being that he has a lot of the number 1 seeds have what are called legendary actions that are kind of like super powered attacks. And he's got these. But unlike other creatures, he doesn't use his up on his turn. He uses them at the end of another creature's turn. So in a one-on-one matchup, what he gets essentially is an extra move right before his turn. And one of his legendary attacks is a wing attack that allows him to knock the other creature down potentially, do some damage, and also fly up into the air. So he gets to move away from the creature, and then he also has an aerial attack, lightning, that does a ton of damage.
Breath is crazy powerful.
It's nuts. So he actually has some really good maneuverability and options that aren't available to some of our other number 1 seeds, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Well, he maybe seems like the weakest number 1 seed on paper. He's still a number 1 seed for a reason. He's still got a lot of ridiculously strong attributes that are going to be tough to beat for anybody.
For sure. I was surprised as we researched him.
He's an undead dragon, so we all know.
So
they're pretty powerful.
Gotta be good. He's a undead dragon wizard, so filled with
added
power.
bonus.
Yeah.
Spelling bonus. Yeah. So matchups.
Yes, what's our matchup for this?
My matchup for this.
That's mine from last one.
There we go.
Oh, here we go.
It is the number 5, the number 12, Thon versus the Slithering Track. So this is another matchup of very, very differing styles that I think will be interesting to watch play out. The Orthon, as you can tell by his multiple weapons and cheery demeanor, is kind of just a killer. Like, he works as a bounty hunter for demons. So when demons don't want to go into somewhere, they send in this guy. He can be invisible, so he's like super good at ambushing. And he's like a tank, pretty much. He's got that dagger. I mean, it's called the dagger, which is ridiculous. It's humongous. And then also that crossbow, wedge crossbow, and he can, when he hits you with it, he can choose a bunch of different effects out of a bunch of different effects to do. So he can paralyze it, he can have acid, he can cause blindness, all these different sort of conditions.
Okay, that's nuts.
Well, which is nuts. However, the Slithering Tracker, while being very disgusting, seems a little bit weaker. I mean, he's the 12th seed after all. But they are immune to almost all of the effects that I just mentioned from the crossbow. So, it'll be hard to see how the Orthon is really gonna hurt the Slithering Tracker, and the Slithering Tracker can get up all in the Orthon's face and like suffocate it. So I don't know. These are all possibilities. We'll see what happens. I just think it's gonna be that's gonna be fun to watch play out.
Yeah, that could be a close call depending on how the dice roll.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
What about you?
So my matchup is another 8 versus 9 seed. I partially picked it because I love boulettes as monsters. I think they're hilarious. So the boulette is this, like, it's the one that's coming out of the ground. It's called a land shark in the monster manual. And its favorite thing to eat is apparently halflings. So they, like, basically what these things do is, like, hibernate underground and then launch themselves out of the ground and, like, chomp up anything alive. But apparently they're most happy when chasing, quote, plump halflings across an open field, according to the monster manual.
What a dream.
What a dream. Just, like, frolicking through a field as you, like, chase another creature to its death. But that's what boulettes love, I guess. My other favorite thing about this monster is that one of its attacks is launching itself 15 feet of distance, so I don't know, like 20 feet in the air, and then landing and doing 2 different types of damage and potentially knocking its opponent prone.
Like a belly flop.
Yeah,
almost.
like a belly flop. Yeah. That would be the technical term.
Right.
Rather than deadly leap, we can go with belly flop. So he's actually pretty ferocious, despite his fondness for halflings. So I'm fond of this monster, and he's up against. Who
even cares what he's up against?
I mean, who cares what this Tanaruk is? Ugh. He's got a club. He's got some stuff that I'm being a little unfair. So he actually has he has a really cool ability. He's like a pretty straightforward, like, this is a matchup that's very much like physical melee attack. Like, they're gonna duke it out. It's gonna be like hard and fast and gory to the end. But the Tanaruk has an interesting ability where when another creature lands a melee hit on it, he can, in response, so as a reaction, not part of his turn, attack that creature with advantage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he has the potential to, like, up his number of attacks overall, which is nuts. So he'll be hard to beat. Obviously, look at him.
He's pretty scary. He, like, wants to be hit, too, right? Like,
yeah.
Then he's better. So.
Yeah, because then he gets that reaction, and then he'll probably just hit you again on his turn. Like, this is not a creature that's going to turn around and run away. This is, like, a fight to the end sort of creature. So it'll be a fun matchup.
I feel like whoever comes out of this matchup is not going to be in very good shape to face.
No, I don't think so. Unless there's...
the dragon.
Yeah. Unless there's some weird thing with the dice, which can happen.
Right.
And,
totally.
like, someone just doesn't hit ever, which does happen, this will be one where they'll come out pretty weak, I think. They'll soften each other up a lot.
Yeah. And then, so a dark horse in this round is this fella.
This guy.
So
the spider monkey.
Girawan. And basically, I mean, look at him, first of all.
Look at him.
I feel like we all know how, like, ferocious and dangerous real gorillas can be. So what if you add 2 more arms to them?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Do we even have to say anything else? I don't know.
Yeah. And the only other thing I will highlight is I thought I was reading this wrong, but your summary is correct. He gets 5 attacks per turn.
5 attacks.
5 attacks.
That is crazy.
It's nuts. And the reason that's crazy is because, like, D20 systems, swinging. But if you get 5 chances to roll a 20, that's, like, double what most other monsters get on their turn. Like, getting to attack twice is kind of standard. He gets to attack 5 times. Like, that's nuts. And in the system, if you roll a 20, your damage is doubled, essentially.
So he has 5 chances to hit a 20.
Yep. It's crazy.
His odds are pretty high. Yeah.
So he could be a real... He could do some real damage.
Classic dark horse. And he's a 10 seed, too. So he's a pretty low seed, you know?
Yeah. He will probably go farther. That 5 attacks is devastating, especially because these are one-on-one matchups. Some of these other monsters...
These types of like teams, or in this case monsters, who are low-seeded but have a good chance of going far. If they go far, they're called Cinderellas.
Oh.
Kind of like, it's called like a Cinderella story, right? I'm from like Caddyshack. But, so, I mean, this guy, Cinderella story, potentially.
Yeah.
Not saying we're calling it, but we're calling it.
Yeah, I mean, look at him. That's all he wants. He just wants someone to take him in a pumpkin carriage and put some glass shoes on him.
Exactly. 6 glass slippers.
Yes, glass slippers, excuse me. So, moving on, we've got our last region next, which is the south. The Southern Crescent.
All right.
Yeah.
So our number 1 seed in the Southern Crescent is the Arion.
He
looks like something.
He looks like a big old dude with a horn, if we get there in a second.
We'll get there. We'll get there, maybe.
One day.
Yeah.
There he is.
There he is.
Open on up. There we go.
At long last.
Yeah. So, and even when you see him, you can already see, you can tell he's got a lot of different abilities that are going to be really useful for beating the crap out of his enemies.
He's pretty obvious with what he can do. I mean, you see all of his main weapons right there. He's got a stinger. He's got a snake tail. He's got wings. He's got claws.
Yeah, so he can fly around. He's huge. He's literally, like, his size is huge. He's a big boy. Big boy. And
big boy.
His poison stinger, we've got the same thing we've got with the green dragon, where that poison can hang on for a long time. And his specifically limits healing. So he can really put a cap on his opponent's ability to get back up to full health and stay in the game. And he can teleport if he doesn't want to fly with his wings, I guess.
Flying's too much work sometimes, so...
Just gotta snap your fingers and get that 120 feet away.
And as if all of that wasn't enough, he can just regenerate health. Like, every turn, he just regenerates 20 health if he feels like it.
Yeah.
So...
He'll be tough to beat.
Just a bonus.
Yeah, just a bonus. He'll be tough to beat.
Yeah. Alright, but let's talk about who might beat him.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
so
talk about that.
My matchup to watch out for is this one. We got the 7 versus 10. The Anise Hag versus the Black Pudding. Just a couple of delightful looking monsters here. The Black Pudding, don't get distracted by the large monster that's being consumed by it. It is, of course, just the ooze here.
Yeah. I think that's an orc inside of it. And the Black Pudding is...
An orc.
It's a black pudding. Yeah.
It's a black oozy pudding. So again, I have another ooze in the matchup. The oozes are just, I think, the oozes need to be watched for in this turn. So, but the Annis hag being the higher C, we'll talk about her first. Usually hags are in covens, so I think she might be a little bit vulnerable by herself. Probably not used to it as much. She's got some spells, but they're not really that great when it's just her casting them, not her other sisters. So I think she'll mostly be fighting with like her claws. She has a bite, which is pretty scary. And then she has like a hug that she does, like a hag hug, which is just, I mean, a bad idea. And
when you're up against an ooze.
Also, social distancing, everyone. Like, something to keep in mind.
It's true. You don't want to get too close to that ooze.
She hugs the ooze. The ooze is gonna
just suffocate her
with acid.
Or that.
It's kind of what the black pudding does. So, and also, if she tries to splash the black pudding, one of the black pudding's sort of powers or like abilities it can do, if it gets slashed, it can split like an amoeba. So it kind of just will multiply a couple times and then be even harder to take care of. So I think it's, a possibility for an upset because the black pudding just got a lot of tricks up its sleeves.
Yeah, they're sneaky. I mean, they're straightforward, but they're sneaky.
Yeah, don't overlook that puddle on the ground.
It could just kill you.
It could kill you. All right, your matchup.
My matchup is the Mesoloth versus the Brontosaurus. So some of you may recognize the Brontosaurus from science class because it's an actual dinosaur, which is why I wanted to highlight this matchup. Especially because his only attack is stomp. And I'm really looking forward to that dinosaur stomp fighting style. The Mesoloth,
we don't see it too much in D&D.
No, it's really his stomp and his tail. He's very straightforward, but I don't think he's very smart, so that's why.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty small brain, I would assume.
I mean, it's a dinosaur, so. Right. The Mesoloth is part of a whole thing in D&D. It's part of a larger group of creatures that jump from dimension to dimension. The important thing to know about him is that he has a lot of abilities, but he could be kind of limited against the Brontosaurus. He can teleport, but he can only, if he teleports, that's his whole action for his turn. So at some point, he will need to get very close to the Brontosaurus to attack it, because all of his attacks are melee attacks, at which point the Brontosaurus will Brontosaurus stomp. And so then we'll be, having just a very straightforward battle. So
how big is the Mesoloth?
I don't know, actually I didn't write it down. I don't think they're super huge.
Okay. Not Brontosaurus size, clearly, but...
No, not Brontosaurus size. Let me see. Can I look it up real fast? They're like in a weird part of the book, though. The monster manual is theoretically alphabetical, but not really.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll start talking about the Dark Horse candidate in this region.
Perfect.
And that is a combatant that pretty much everyone will be familiar with, and that's the vampire. So the humble not so humble vampire is a 3 speed in this region, which is actually kind of low because the vampire is pretty powerful. I mean, it's even in the skin of D&D, it's a pretty typical vampire in that it can change into a bat. It can its main attack is to bite, and it can take some of the health points away from whoever it's fighting. So, pretty typical vampire stuff. It also doesn't like the sunlight, though. So, those are either weakened or kind of turned off in the sunlight, and it actually loses health each round if it's in the direct sunlight. So, depending on the environment of whatever battle it's in, that could play probably the biggest role of any fighter it'll play on the vampire.
Yeah. The other thing to know about the vampire is it has a charm ability. So if it's up against a humanoid, it has the potential ability to charm that person and make them think they're that monster and make it think it's its friend, which obviously can be useful for backstabbing, or I feel like depending how we kind of decide this goes, you could make that monster forfeit the match.
Yeah, sure.
So that's worth watching too. Just depends who he's matched up against, which I can't remember off the top of my head.
And he also has like a Children of the Night type power where he can summon either wolves if he's outside at nighttime, or bats or rats or whatever to sort of help him out, which is pretty interesting. I mean, a lot of these battles are going to be one-on-ones, but he has special power that he can sort of
bring in some helpers. Yeah. And it's a big deal when you bring in people to help you and suddenly you have to contend with 5 other creatures attacking you instead of 1.
Sure. Yeah.
Even if you can easily kill those creatures, it still takes time and precious action time. Yeah, the Mezzoloth is medium, by the way, so the Brontosaurus is much larger.
All right, well, that's sort of quick preview of some interesting stuff in the bracket. I mean, obviously, go to aadl.org/monstermadness, and you can check out the bracket on your own time. Fill it out. Sometime next week, we'll have a schedule out, but sometime next week, we'll start round 1.
Yep.
So probably try to have your stuff filled out if you want to play along by next weekend.
Yep. Yeah, probably won't be on Monday, but next Monday's a good time to be done.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks everyone for joining us. We're so happy you could be here together apart in this time. And we'll look forward to seeing what you guys think as we go through this monster bracket.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you have fun playing along.
Yeah. See you guys later.